Welcome to the China Desk Podcast, presented by the Federal Newswire, with your host, Steve Yates.
Welcome to the China Desk Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Yates, Senior Research Fellow for China and National Security at the Heritage Foundation. A reminder to our audience for whom we are most grateful. Viewers can watch the China Desk on YouTube or subscribe to hear all our interviews on Apple, Spotify, and most other podcast providers. We welcome you to check out our website and show archive at ChinaDeskPodcast.com. My guest today is a return visitor, Joseph Cella, former U.S. ambassador to some of the most beautiful island nations in Melanesia and Polynesia from 2019 to 2021. He's a founder and principal of the Pontifex Group, founder of the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast, and co-founder of the Michigan-China Economic Security Review Group. Joseph, welcome back to the China Desk. Let's jump in.
Good to be back with you, Steve. Much has happened vis-a-vis the China threat on our own shores and abroad since we last spoke, and eager to confer with you on it.
Well, it sure has. So let's begin at ground zero where you are. Michigan, of the 50 states, has actually been in the news on doing these things. We've talked in a previous episode about the state-based Michigan effort that you were a part of, some other good friends were a part of, about looking at malign influences of the CCP. But there's been some more eye-popping news of late on the Michigan front. Why don't you do a quick primer on the big news that had happened and what the reaction has been in Michigan?
Sure. Well, emanating from the University of Michigan, there were Chinese nationals who were scholars, researchers, doctoral students that hailed from mainland China that had been here conducting so-called research while they pursued their doctoral degrees. And there were two instances where one person tried to smuggle in biological material consisting of roundworms, who, in fact, I think was working with a Wuhan University. And then there was another duo, boyfriend and girlfriend, that were identified as members of the Chinese Communist Party, who smuggled in a fungus that can wipe out crops. And as lies emanated and dodging and weaving, despite the damning evidence, and happy to see the great work of the CBP, FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office to hold these people to account. And that continues to unfold. The most recent development, Steve, was one of the perpetrators, Sheng Xuan Hua Han, was expelled from the country. And unfortunately, I think got a little bit of a light sentence. The prosecutors are pushing for 6 months. She got time served and is no longer in the country. I would have loved to see much longer time to send a message. And then certainly, I hope that her revocation of her visa happened and a permanent ban on her entering the United States. That was not clear in the information that I received. The other is a little bit more telltale, where the boyfriend of the other duo that smuggled in the fungus fled back to China. They arrested and charged and jailed without bail his girlfriend, and she remains there. I'm sure they're grilling her for information, asking what she knows, and getting to the bottom of it. But I think that in the broader context of things, I think this is just emblematic of the malign activity by China, the Chinese Communist Party. These individuals have to fulfill the charge of the national intelligence law that requires them to surveil, collect, and report as directed or on their own volition for the Ministry of State Security or other bodies. So when you're dealing with these pathogens that could really spread into livestock and our farmland, you can't play around. And for too long, American universities have commingled in an unhealthy way, jeopardizing our national security, and really, sadly, Steve, for the cause of money.
Yeah, well, I have to say, just to be glib about it for a moment, it was kind of odd to watch the headlines come in. There is a fungus among us when this was happening. And then the term agro-terrorism is something that I hadn't really noticed in polite discourse in the United States, but it really opened a lot of eyes. People have been looking at ag land and sort of the proximity of where that land might be to sensitive sites. But the idea of pathogens coming in that wouldn't just affect human beings, but could affect our livestock or our crop food supply. I think this was a real eye opener in that case. How was it perceived in Michigan?
Well, Michigan really has agriculture as its number two industry. There are 50,000 farms in the state of Michigan. It's over, I think, 10 million acres of farmland. It generates $100 billion annually to the economy, second only to the manufacturing sector. 800 and some odd thousand jobs. That's roughly 20% of our total employment. And it has the most diverse agriculture sector industry in the United States, second only to California. So a lot is at stake. I mean, you have Michigan, you have the breadbasket, and then you have California, and certainly some other fertile states as well. But it is the threat and how these it can't be understated, and we need to get on a footing, Steve, as you well know, that is commensurate with the threat. Eyes wide open, whole of state, whole of society engagement, and be really nimble in tracking these things and engaging them accordingly.
Yeah. And after the news broke, did you immediately sense public pressure to take action, sort of press the university to change policy? Did the university proactively go ahead and do that, or were there sort of things in the legislature or in the media or what have you that really
Yeah.
put the iron to the fire and pushed the change?
Yeah, really, as we previously talked in earlier episodes, the flashpoint emanated from the dealings on the state level with Governor Whitmer and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, bringing in Communist Chinese Party tied battery manufacturers, cattle that has a corrupted deal with Ford, and then Goshen. And I can give you an update later on those. But really, eyes really became wide open after those moments. State legislature was semi-engaged. The congressional delegation wasn't really. But I will say that through the Michigan China Economic Security Review Group, we've maintained ongoing dialogue with state legislative leaders, rank and file members, the congressional delegation, and really hats off to those leaders. Speaker Matt Hall in the Michigan legislature, Congressman John Molinar, and others for really putting the bright spotlight on it. I testified on a number of occasions before the oversight committees that Speaker Hall instituted, in large part due to the nefarious malign activities of China in Michigan. But then Congressman Molinar, certainly with his collaboration with Virginia Fox and others, in really pressuring the University of Michigan to take certain steps to clean up their mess. And happy to see that in the wake of this, you have the U.S. Department of Education investigating the University of Michigan's funding sources. And I can tell you a lot of largesse emanates from China, and it's not good. And certainly the FBI and the Department of Justice are into it and tracking these patterns that are emerging. And I will say that there's also been another development with the University of Michigan and a Chinese university that where there's military applications in the research of metallurgy. And again, unbelievable that considering the threat environment that has gone on as long as it has, it benefits our Defense Department, it benefits their defense apparatus, and the fact that commingling goes on is unconscionable. It is good to see that Secretary Hegseth, President Trump are taking steps slowly but surely, Director Patel, to again get on that footing that's commensurate with the threat. More work
Yeah.
to do.
Well, still on the topic of universities and students, there obviously was a big national controversy that came out when the subject of Chinese students were in the headlines when Secretary Rubio made very clear the principle that if you are
Yeah,
a visitor in our country, that is a privilege, not a right, and that we should know who you are and we should know the purpose for which you come. And if you deviate from that purpose, we may deviate from extending the privilege. And that was very, very clear. And then President Trump talked about not having anything against Chinese students and wanted to keep Chinese students in America, et cetera, et cetera. But from my point of view and from the Heritage Foundation's point of view, we thought that there's a really, really important set of principles at play here. And I wonder how, in the conversations you've been a part of, how it's seen in Michigan with these other things going on with the university. On the one hand, I think Americans have a very generous, if not almost missionary ethos about opening up to
true.
people from abroad, including people from China. But they are a lot less charitable if it means that we are training the next generation of engineers, warriors, or others who might use the opportunity against us. And if it is taking the place of an opportunity that an American should be having in our universities. So I think
Yeah,
there's several other principles that probably need to get fleshed out. But as you've engaged this conversation about the university, the research role, I mean, these people that were bringing fungus in were related to the university, but it's not what people think of by way of foreign students. Um, how has
true.
that conversation evolved in recent weeks and months?
It's a great question, Steve, and it's an ongoing conversation. And continuing behind the scenes, working with state legislators, they seek to have conversations with the university heads that are commingled with Chinese based institutions that teach Leninism, that teach Marxism. And it is unconscionable. You have Eastern Michigan University, you have Oakland University, you have the University of Detroit. They have been identified by the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party and holding them to account as being commingled with these bodies that have deep, deep ties to the Chinese Communist Party. So the Michigan legislators are alert, they're on, they're nimble. Again, all a part of that whole of society, whole of government engagement. So that's very encouraging. But the the mask has slipped. I guess I would say. President Trump very aggressive in his first term. I think that a bit of a different take with obviously different priorities right now, but great intentionality on any number of fronts that I can reference later that he's doing, and NASA and Secretary Hegseth to counter China. But I will say that you have a situation where uh, the uh, I think again back to money. I think this is a culture thing where for too long they have seen this short-sighted largesse and how great it would be, and it's better for taxpayers, and we won't have to go to the legislature and so forth. We could just link up with X institution in mainland China, and they're looking for these opportunities. But the long-term pain cannot be overstated. The intellectual property theft that emanates from this and other malign behavior happens. Michigan, again, is strangely enough a state that has had very high visible uh, uh, things over the last 2 or 3 years, and there's more underway, I guarantee it, that really need to be tracked and countered nimbly again by the local, county, even city level, state, and with our federal partners on this. And there's probably more to come in the coming months on this. But good to see a more ready posture that is necessary to counter these malign behaviors that we've witnessed, and I know you have as well, Steve.
Well, I appreciate, and I think a lot of our audience appreciates the work that you and collaborators have been doing to keep this conversation alive and well in Michigan. I think it's really, really important that people in the states feel empowered to participate in the conversations, show up to make sure that good common sense is heard and felt when these issues have come up for decision. So I commend the Club of Michigan, of which I'm at best an honorary member. I'm not really legitimate, but I really, really celebrate the organization and effort that has gone on there, and I love the
Well,
tie.
thank you for your leadership.
Yeah, well, I love the tie to the select committee and the work that's done there. And Chairman Molinar has been a friend to the podcast and a friend on policy, and that's just a blessing all the way around. But
One point on your point on policy, if I may, Steve,
yeah,
and forgive me for interrupting, and that is that policy, as you know, often is smart politics. Okay,
yeah,
so since we last spoke, the Democrat majority of the legislature is now a Republican majority in the state legislature. When I worked with certain state reps to introduce help guide them on a bill package to counter China and other countries. And they reintroduced a more toothy bill this go around. But that first time under Democrat control, nobody would have anything to do with it. No amendments. I think there may have been one lone Democrat who got a lot of heat for voting for an amendment with teeth to counter China. But fascinatingly, in the second round of bill packages and votes and amendments and so forth, Democrats are lining up in large numbers as co-sponsors and voters and supporters of this bill. So that traction is happening. This should not be a partisan matter. It should be bipartisan comity, and I really think that what you see in the launch of the select committee that former Speaker Kevin McCarthy initiated has borne great fruit. I think that's exemplary of where bipartisanship, if it can happen, it's no more important front on the threat to counter China than that. And we're
well,
following their great lead here in Michigan.
well, absolutely. That is good news when good policy makes good politics. So hopefully that will continue. But let's pivot from the love fest about Michigan and talk about the faraway islands
Yeah.
that you have helped us get educated about with your tenure out in the Pacific Islands, but also just maybe give a little bit of an update on where things are on strategic engagement in that part of the world. Those territories can sometimes suffer from neglect, and there could be some opportunism from countries like China. There could be other stronger motivations at play, but maybe share with us a little bit of conversations. Hopefully, you're keeping up with friends and actors in that part of the world.
I am. I would say that you probably have tracked, and others, former colleagues, and I have also tracked. I guess the latest flashpoint in the Scarborough Shoal in the West Philippine Sea, where in recent weeks you had really both the Fang exposed aggression of China, yet. Keystone Cops type episode when uh, uh, a Chinese PLAN Corvette sliced through the bow of I'm sorry, it was a destroyer, I think, and it sliced through the bow of a China Coast Guard Corvette. It's my understanding that a few Chinese Coast Guard members were killed, and really an example of how really their predatory behavior went awry. They, I think, are trying to put now in recent days a face over this by just boldly proclaiming a nature preserve in the Scarborough Shoal that has nothing to do with anything remotely in proximity to their exclusive economic zone. It's just abnormative, malign behavior, rogueness at its worst. No concern about the dignity of the individual that is not even in the nature of communism, Leninism, Maoism, uh, Marxism, and it is a reminder, I think, for the Five Eyes partners to keep a vigilant presence there. And I don't think it takes much for us to do that, to have a desired effect. And it's good that we're ramping up our presence. I saw early signs of that when I was there, but now can't talk specifics about that. But now seeing that fruit bear out. Uh, the table is being set, I hope, for 75 more years of peace. Diplomacy first, but military hard power if necessary. I guess that Latin phrase of si vis pacem para bellum, if you seek peace, prepare for war, I think is the order of the day. And I think President Trump and Secretary Hegseth are fulfilling that in any number of ways. But China remains on the hunt. In the across the Indo-Pacific.
Well, I sure hope that we can all encourage our friends to, at the highest leadership levels possible, to consider stopping by some of these areas. Even just a modest visit can go a long way in moving perceptions, and then those perceptions can help keep actions tilting towards freedom. And I've long hoped that the U.S., Japan, maybe Korea and Taiwan, along with Australia, New Zealand, that should be collaborative partners in a lot of these areas across the Pacific, that together much more can be done, so that a little bit of promised investment from a non-status quo power doesn't really make that much of an impact.
Yeah,
And
it's great fruit has been borne by that collaboration through the Quad, through AUKUS, and much more room to work. I know Canada's uh, uh, going to soon be having a presence in Fiji, if not if it doesn't already. But it really is an important posture to take because, I mean, historically, as you know, Steve, I mean, after the Cold War, there was this base realignment commission, the so-called peace dividend and drawdown, and unfortunately, again, the old adage of if you forget history, you're doomed to repeat it. Obviously, the Middle East happened for over a generation, and I think
yep.
we really took off. I mean, other complications led to this as well, but took our eye off an ascendant China. What happened? We of other things, we closed Subic Bay in the Philippines. We closed our embassy in the Solomon Islands. Again, the happy news is now that we have reengaged the Philippines. We may be reestablishing a presence there. We now have a modest embassy in the Solomon Islands and now Tonga. But again, that will scale, I think, in time, again, to get commensurate with the Chinese presence. And I will tell you, friends that travel in and out of Solomons and beyond, and China is all over. They're seeking to, I know of one instance where they're seeking to buy a precious piece of land in the Solomons that has Deepwater Port written all over it. So they're very intent. And as Admiral, the former, now retired Admiral Mike Studeman said, he said, the China threat is more gigantic than can be understood or appreciated. I think that is a truth that will be with us to follow and be mindful and let it be our North Star in our engagements to counter China going forward.
Yeah, well, I think we also suffer a bit from generational change. The
Yeah.
World War II generation had life experience in the Pacific Islands. There were so many American GIs that went out into those far-flung areas. My own grandfather was on the Solomon Islands,
Wow.
and so there when you have pivotal life experience, and then you continue maybe in your military career or in civilian government service or you're in business. I mean, then you have sort of a tie that naturally will turn your attention to that part of the world. And I think you're right about the elusive peace dividend and I getting moved to other areas. But I think we just have had a couple of generations who don't have as immediate life experience there. and that's hard to replicate. But it can be done if we give people maybe positive life experience out doing some of that engagement. So I really hope that we can get mid and senior level parts of the U.S. government and elsewhere to touch grass, touch sand, whatever the right verbiage would be.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
some of these places,
Water.
and I think there a lot of good. A little bit will go a long way. Well, in your sense, have you seen anything in the early 6, 7 months of the Trump administration executing policy that has led you to feel like your old area of responsibility is in for some good news or trending in the right direction? Or are there any things that you'd like to sort of flash a warning bat sign up saying, hey, here's something that I'd like the good team to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think that I can't recall if we talked about this in an earlier episode, but I happened to visit the embassy last year in May and June, and I will tell you that it was like Grand Central Station. It had grown substantially in terms of personnel, and that is happening elsewhere across the Indo-Pacific. So I think that is, and President Trump, again, it's been a continuum, I would say, from what President Trump really initiated to really counter China in a serious manner, really a hinge moment that he led. In that momentum carried forward, I'd say imperfectly with the Biden administration, but I think he remains engaged. I think what will be interesting to see is how whatever, if there is a dance with China vis-a-vis this talked about trade deal with them and summit. I guess there's a congressional delegation that is heading there next month. That would be very interesting to track and see what comes of that. So I think they're on it. I think they are certainly aware of these malign behaviors by the PLAN and the Chinese Coast Guard in the West Philippine Sea, and we have people on station at our Navy and Air Force to counter and surveil what's underway. But I think that we are on the right track. I think we have to be very careful and not underestimate the nature of China and really remain vigilant and provide our friends and allies and partners in that really the support that they need. Former counterpart John Hennessy Nyland, the former ambassador to Palau, did a great example of the civic action teams that were our military helping with humanitarian engagement and infrastructure and so forth. Not sure. I think that worked well, and the Peace Corps' presence there helped. That I think is all shifting now. But I think that I think our presence through soft power to a reasonable degree, I think unfiltered through some bad practices, as it previously happened, would be a good thing, and really vigilance through our military with our allies and partners is wise as well. So, but have to track it. I would say that another interesting thing to watch coming up this weekend is the Pacific Islands Forum that will be held in the Solomon Islands. And from what I've picked up, China is everywhere, and I'm sure they're going to be vacuuming up a lot of information through the various settings and engagements that happen there, not wanting to cede any ground to the deep and broad relationship that they've established with the Solomon Islands. And that's kept our partner Australia on their toes because that's closer to their shores than ours. But there's still affinity for us there in Australia. But unfortunately, some, I would say, checkbook diplomacy took place above board, but also beneath board. And we again, eyes wide open on that. But that is a very strategic location. particularly for trade. I mean, that area, as you know, carries about $5 trillion worth of trade through it annually, and have to maintain its free and open status that our forebears, your grandfather included, fought and bled for 70, 80 years ago now.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. Time flies, but time flew for us too in our conversation today. Any parting thoughts you'd like to share before we do a wrap?
I would, and I'll just jump back to Michigan. I will say that the one thing that we're watching, one thing that, perhaps there'll be another occasion to have an episode and give you doing public things, but also doing non-public things to track and counter China threat here in Michigan. The one thing is the Goshen project. That is in a lawsuit that Goshen filed against Green Charter Township is in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. A decision can be rendered any day, Steve. I'm cautiously optimistic that will fall in the favor of Green Township, and they could reclaim legal fees from Goshen, which I think would be a great justice. And also, one of their principal advocates, Goshen former vice president, I guess, of North American operations, Chuck Thalen, has, he's shared with as many as 2 or 3 people in that neck of the woods of Mecosta County, Big Rapids, Green Charter Township, that they're done with the project. So we're not resting on our laurels. We'll see what happens, but that may be a little bit of a teaser for another segment with you and your good offices down the road.
Excellent. Well, we like the updates and really appreciate the hard work that you've put in. So I sort of tease, but I also mean it with respect. When I call you Your Excellency, you get that title for life. So I trust that is how your children refer to you when you come to the dinner table. I would certainly insist upon it every time I came home, and I'm sure that my children would never oblige. But
I tried to do it with my wife, but I don't know why she doesn't oblige. But I guess I'll keep that. So, no, I handle it with all great care and respect and prudence. It was a high honor to serve in the capacity I did, and appreciate the opportunity to build on that through you and your good work and in the fight to counter China.
Awesome. Well, you're always Your Excellency here. So we thank you very much. For our audience, if you've enjoyed today's China Desk podcast, please tell your friends, consider subscribing, and give a visit to ChinaDeskPodcast.com. Thank you very much for joining. And a special thank you to Joseph Cella for sharing his perspectives. Until next time, I'm Steve Yates, your host here at the China Desk.
Thank you for listening to the China Desk podcast, presented by the Federal Newswire and hosted by Steve Yates. Check out the Federal Newswire's family of websites, as well as their social media stream.